We will call to order the meeting of the Haliburton County Land Division Committee meeting for Monday, January 8th, 2024. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mishi-Sagig territory and in the traditional territory of Mishi-Sagig and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beau Soleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its land and waters since time immemorial. The agenda requires 2 amendments to include nominations for the positions of Chair and Deputy Chair for the Land Division Committee. Is there any discussion on the amended agenda? Be it resolved that the January 8th, 2024 Land Division Committee agenda, as amended, be hereby approved. Member Kennedy, Member Snyder?
Yes.
Yay.
That is carried. Can I have a nomination for the committee chair? Member McKelvey? Do I have
I'd like to nominate Liz Danielson as the chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Member Kennedy?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. That is carried. Can I have a nomination for the committee deputy chair? Member McKelvey?
I'll nominate Bob Snyder for deputy.
Can I have a seconder? Member Kennedy?
I'll second that nomination.
Thank you. That is carried.
Actually, Alana, I think we have to vote
Oh, my apologies.
on both.
Okay.
Sorry, Alana, we should probably just go back to the nomination for chair and just read the resolution to the record.
Okay. Be it resolved that Liz Danielson be appointed as chair of the Land Division Committee. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
Member Danielson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is carried. And be it resolved that Bob Snyder be appointed as deputy chair of the Land Division Committee. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
And Chair Danielson?
Yes.
Thank you. I will now pass this meeting over to Chair Danielson.
Thank you. And thank you for your vote of confidence. I'll read our general introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to the Land Division Committee. My name is Liz Danielson, the chair of the committee. I'd like to introduce you to the other members. Tammy McKelvey, Councillor at Large for Minden Hills. Pat Kennedy, Public Member for Dysart et al. Bob Snyder, Public Member representing Highlands East. And Bill Donald, Public Member representing Algonquin Highlands. We're joined by our Director of Planning, Steve Stone, our official Land Division Secretary Treasurer, Alana Lacey, and Planner Adam Kozlowski. This meeting is held through remote electronic participation in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. The purpose of the hearing is to give each applicant or their agent the opportunity to discuss their application with the committee and to respond to written submissions which may have been received. It's also an opportunity for committee members to broaden their understanding of each application by asking questions. Members of the public who are participating virtually today may also make oral submissions to the committee, whether in support or opposition of an application. We do hear the applications in the same order as they were received in our office. Our planner will introduce each application and provide planning briefs. Then participants who have registered to address the committee will be admitted virtually to speak with the committee. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. With that, we'll now proceed with the agenda. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of December the 11th? Member Kennedy and Member Snyder.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the Land Division Committee meeting held December 11th, 2023 be approved as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. So we'll move into the applications for consent. The first being Gillespie for a new shoreline lot in Minden Hills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will share screen and walk committee briefly through this application. And I trust everybody can see the sketch. Okay. Application H05023 is for Gillespie, and the subject lands are located at 1192 Humphrey Road, which is on Gull Lake. The application proposes to sever one new lot, which is outlined in green. This lot would have 177 feet of shoreline frontage on Gull and would have a lot area of 7.3 acres. On this property currently, there is the remains of a very old cabin and a similar abandoned or non-occupied residential dwelling to the just to the left of it. And this structure is it's a little bit of disrepair, but it's still considered a dwelling under zoning. The cabin over here is basically the remains of a log cabin that was probably built over 150 years ago. The retained lot contains the applicant's principal dwelling plus a number of outbuildings, storage buildings, storage barn, and so on, and various smaller garages and sheds. The retained lot would have 131 feet of frontage on Gull Lake and would have 3.86 acres of lot area. And just for committees, just for the orientation of the property, Humphrey Road, the road allowance currently comes in and terminates at this point, and then it proceeds onwards as a privately maintained road. And there's also a number of other private roads that bisect this property on the southwest side, where there's a number of shoreline properties to the north and to the west that have access over these roads. One of them is Orchid Lane and the other one is Zenith Drive. As we know, the severance doesn't affect any existing rights of way to these existing properties. As a result of the circulation to the public, we did receive comments fairly recently regarding concerns over the status of ownership of the extension of Humphrey Road that basically follows Part 6 here and then Part 9, which is outlined in this black dashed line. And there are two shoreline properties to the northeast of where the severed lot is that currently use this laneway to get out to the public portion. And the owner had called in indicating that there was discrepancy over the ownership of Part 6 and Part 9, whether it was still owned by the municipality or it was privately owned. I did forward correspondence from the solicitor in this regard. And as a result of this information, staff recommend that the application be deferred until the ownership and the status of that private road can be sorted out. It's my understanding that Mr. Shapira here in Minden has been involved on behalf of the Gillespies, but we don't have a response yet from Mr. Shapira. So again, staff recommend deferral until we get an answer on the status of that road ownership. And I believe Mr. Gallagher is here as a participant to provide further information in this situation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Adam, are the two portions of private road that you showed us the only land that is under question of ownership?
Yes, through you to the committee. Yes, it's that extension of Humphrey Road that goes out to the point. That the question is who owns the land that laneway is on. And that's under question right now.
Question,
It is privately maintained. I believe Mr. Gillespie plows it, but again, the issue of who actually owns the land that the road is on is the crux of what the issue is.
questions from other members? We'll start with Member Snyder.
Thank you. Adam, I see there are conditions in the report from Minden Hills. Was there a report done by Minden Hills?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Minden Hills did do an endorsement report. I didn't include it at this time. It will be included in a future report that comes back to committee once the legality of the road is answered. But long story short, Minden Hills did recommend approval subject to those conditions that you saw.
Okay, thank you. And one other question. It wasn't clear to me what the access to the severed lot was going to be, whether it's on Humphreys or whether it's off of Zenith.
My understanding is that it would be Humphrey. The road is there right now, and that would make the most sense. The private portion of Humphrey Road is what provides access now.
Okay, thank you.
Member McKelvey.
If this road turns out to be in the township's name, they already have a severance, a natural severance, I assume, but they would actually have like the lakefront plus that other little triangle?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. I'm just looking at the same reference plan. So if we get into, what if Part 6 and Part 9 are still in municipal ownership, then this lot will basically have that quote unquote natural severance basically on the north and south side of that hatched part. And so that's going to change the application significantly. We're going to be dealing with a different parcel fabric altogether.
And if I may, the frontage of this property does not meet the zoning bylaw. So I'm just trying to figure out what county planning thinks of that, or is that something you don't really comment on? Or
Through you, Madam Chair, good question. I rely on the municipal endorsement of whether the reduced lot frontages are appropriate. The county really, we don't have any numerical standard for lot frontage. One of the conditions that Minden Hills did request is a rezoning to recognize any deficiencies. So if these lots are deficient for frontage or area or both, that will have to be further considered by Minden Hills Council later once this application is dealt with.
I know that in Algonquin Highlands, although we do have a minimum frontage requirement, when the lot being severed is substantial in size, they sort of look at balancing that out and have accepted lesser frontages. Whether that's the case in other municipalities, I don't know. Member Donald, you had a question?
Adam, the vacant residents on the lands to be severed, are they serviced by a septic tank and field bed? Do you know?
Through you, Madam Chair, off the top, I do not know. I don't see the septic on the survey, but that's something that we can investigate when this application comes back. I would suspect that, if this lot is severed, I would expect that the municipality and the county would probably ask for an enhanced setback for septic and future structures, regardless. But I can get back to you on if there's any septic record on that property.
And the county official plan shows Gull Lake as a non-completed lake with respect to lake trout. Is that still the case?
Yes, through you, Gull Lake is not at capacity. It is a lake trout lake, but it demonstrates that it has additional development. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Peter. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Adam, just one last question. If this application is deferred, is there any time limit that the committee has to deal with it, or are we free to allow the lawyers to deal with this forever, however long it takes?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that's really up to committee. I don't know how long it's going to take to sort out that ownership issue. If committee wants to put a timeline on it, I see Steve has joined. He's probably has some thoughts. In my experience with deferrals, I don't really recall sunset clauses on the timeline myself.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the Planning Act does stipulate a timeline for a decision to be made. So I'm a little rusty whether it's 60 or 90 days for consent. But yeah, you can defer it, but there is a clock that should the applicant grow impatient, they can appeal a non-decision of committee and take it off to the LPAT. My experience is that rarely happens. So as long as we're operating in good faith, then you know, a deferral can go beyond the time limits in the Planning Act. But let's say it's 2 years, I would say that's a bit too long. So
Let's keep an eye on it as a committee on the time frame and revisit the timing. So I understand we have members of the public who wish to speak to this application.
Yes, we have Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Chambers awaiting to be brought into the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. If you can bring them in. Good afternoon, Mr. Gallagher.
Good afternoon.
I'm assuming that you've heard the discussion so far.
I have been watching, yes, thank you.
Okay, so if you have comments to make on the application, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to address the committee, and also thank you to Elena and to Adam for their help over the past week or two. What I'd like to do is just add a little color and briefly summarize the reasons why we believe this application should be deferred, many of which are set out in the correspondence submitted by our lawyer, Carol Jameson, which I believe you have in your materials. Firstly, the first reason is we don't believe that the applicant actually owns the piece of property or a portion of it, being the road, as set out in the application. And just by way of background, in 1914, a strip of land was sold to the township to be used as a 66-foot wide public road or highway. And that's essentially what is now Humphrey Road. The road extends essentially from Highway 35 through to the end of the, to its end at the lands owned by Susan Lloyd. And this is registered as Instrument 895. 2 years later, in 1916, my great-grandmother purchased the property, and the deed at that time described our property as abutting a public road. And several times since 1916, as the property has changed hands, up to and including the latest time to my parents in 2000, it has also been described as abutting the public road. So it's our belief that Humphrey Road, since 1914 has been a public road and continues to be, and that it is 66 feet wide, and it extends through to the lot owned by Susan Lloyd. So with that background, I'll just jump into the summer, forward to the summer of 2003, when we engaged Carol Jameson to start the process of transferring the title of our cottage from my parents to me and my siblings. During that process, Carol advised us of a problem. She subsequently reached out to Mr. Shapira, Mr. Gillespie's lawyers, to get clarification on the issue. That was on August 1st, and I believe her correspondence is in your package. What she advised us was that in April 2005, Mr. Gillespie had a survey of the road prepared, starting at his property line through to the end at Susan Lloyd's property. The survey described this part of Humphrey Road as part 2 in the survey, which I believe is now part 6 and 9 in the survey in your package. as being, and it described the road as being about 15 feet wide. And at the same time, Mr. Gillespie had part 2, being the road, included in several parts or parcels that were transferred from himself to his wife and himself. So we weren't sure, we're not sure if including part 2 was a clerical error, but we don't believe that Mr. Gillespie ever owned part 2, being the road, and certainly this was all news to us. Our lawyer has been unable to find any documentation that the road status changed from public to private, nor that it was sold from the township to Mr. Gillespie. We were certainly never advised of a proposed or actual transfer, nor the resulting change to the road status or to our access rights. So in the absence of any new information from Mr. Shapira, who we have not heard back from since last summer, as I mentioned, it is our view that the road should not be described as private in the survey supporting the application, or for that matter, in any survey. In addition, we believe that the proposed survey is also an error in that this survey describes Humphrey Road over that piece as being approximately 15 feet wide, and we believe it's 66 feet wide up to and through our property. And we believe that approving this application before this ownership is established would significantly degrade our existing unrestricted access and simply add more confusion to the matter, making the ultimate resolution more difficult. Our second point of concern centers around the notice provided to us. As I noted above, we've been waiting for a response from Mr. Shapira since last August, and so we were taken aback, quite truthfully, when out of the blue we received this notice of application on December 22nd. And given this is only 9 working days between then and the committee meeting, when during that period, both our lawyers' offices and Mr. Shapira's offices were closed, we don't believe that it was reasonably possible to get this matter resolved prior to the meeting. Lastly, we also have concerns that the lots created under the proposed severance application don't meet the minimum requirements for frontages set out in the application. So clearly our main concern at this point is sorting out the ownership of the road, for which we believe we will need the assistance of Mr. Shapira, Ms. Jamieson, and the township to resolve. So with that, I thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Questions from the committee? I think we're recognizing that there are challenges and we do need to defer.
Great, thank you.
Is Mr. Chambers present?
Mr. Chambers is present and we will bring him forward.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me? All right.
You have some comments that you'd like to make about the application, Mr. Chambers?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to appear. My name is William Chambers. I'm the owner, along with my children, of the property immediately to the north of the severed section. As I noted in my written submission, our access is via Orchid Lane and Zenith Drive, which is protected by an easement. And my initial concern was that that access be maintained through any severance. Mr. Kozlowski was very kind in replying and assuring me that is that the protections afforded by that severance would be maintained with any severance. So that addresses that point. We are not directly affected by the issue with respect to Humphrey Road. That is not our access to the cottage. But the only thing I would add to Mr. Gallagher's comments is that given the age of all of the owners of adjacent properties in this case, including Mr. Gillespie, whatever, that this issue of that almost all the properties will change ownership within the next few years. That's kind of inevitable given our ages. And this matter has been pending for more than 20 years in terms of the uncertain status once the township stopped maintaining that property beyond the indicated covered section. It's been ambiguous. It needs to be resolved, and it will certainly be need to be resolved with respect to any changes of the property ownership there. So I have great sympathy for that. Once that is resolved, I would certainly endorse the application for severance for my very good friend, longstanding friend, Cheryl Gillespie.
Thank you. Any questions of the committee for Mr. Chambers? Hearing none, is the agent Jane Harrison present?
No, the agent is not present today.
Okay. I guess she saw the writing on the wall. All right, if there are there any further questions by the committee? Hearing none, I have a resolution. Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton receive the report related to the application for consent, H05123 Gillespie, and that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton defer the application for consent pending outcome of the investigation and legal opinion in regard to the status of Humphrey Road. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Members Kennedy and McKelvey.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just caught one thing. The file number, I believe, is H50. Just to note that correction.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
And if our secretary could take the vote.
The note has been taken. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
Chair Danielson?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's confirmed. The application is deferred. Thank you, gentlemen. The next application is for a lease of Shore Road allowance by Daniel Alvey in Harcourt Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just bringing up the sketch here. Okay, I'm going to share a screen and walk committee briefly through the application. Okay, so application H50-05123 is for a long-term lease of the Shore Road allowance, and the current leasee is Daniel Alvey, and the property is at 1177 Len Cropper Drive, which is on Allen Lake. And so the way the Harcourt Park land ownership works is there a series of long-term leases. And so the subject property at 1177 is currently depicted in this part here. It's parcel 76 of Plan C52, and that's currently leased to Mr. Alvey. Back in 2019, the Shore Road allowance was conveyed from the municipality of Dysart to Harcourt Park. And now what this application will do is effectively include the Shore Road as part of the lease to Mr. Alvey. So Mr. Alvey will lease the back part here, and then the lease will also include the Shore Road allowance, all under the same lease name. No other no other developments proposed. It's a pretty standard lease and in conformance with Harcourt Park's ownership structure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you. And sorry, Dysart has endorsed the application.
I must admit, just briefly before I read the entire application, it threw me off that we were releasing a shore road allowance, and then I realized that it was Harcourt Park and different circumstances. Any questions from the committee? Hearing no questions, could I have a mover and a seconder then to grant provisional approval? Members Donald and Kennedy.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H-05123 Alvi, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-05123 Alvi, subject to the conditions of approval. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
Chair Danielson?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's carried. Is there any other business to bring forward today? Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only other update I wanted to give committee was on the appeal on Mountain Lake for the refusal of the severance. So we do have a March 1st OLT hearing date, which is actually pretty quick. So I will get the link to the meeting for committee members if you want to watch.
Oh, that'd be
Yes.
great. Thank you. So our next meeting is on
Oh.
February. Go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair, rest of committee. Just like to tell you that this is my last meeting with the committee. I will be on vacation come February 2nd, and my first pensionable day will be April 1st this year. But I do want to express my gratitude to this committee, to the chair, for your expertise in managing all the files that we've had to do over the last 2 or 3 years. Your track record is unbelievable. And when you think of it, it's taken us to this point to actually just have our first appeal, which means you've managed a wonderful caseload, dealt with an incredible backlog, and created many lots that could be utilized for housing in the county. And it's a testament to how well you've managed things, because we have not had any appeals up until the last one of Aubrey. So I just want to say thank you. You've made the planning department's job extremely easy because you've worked so well with us. So thank you again.
Well, and that's kudos to all the committee members. You don't need to grin quite so much, Steve. Listen, we've really appreciated working with you for the time you've been with the county. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and on behalf of the committee, I'd just like to wish you all the best on your holiday and then in your retirement. I'm sure that you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, so could I have a motion to adjourn? So much for 10 minutes. That's moved by Member Kennedy, second by Member McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the January 8th, 2024 Land Division Committee meeting be hereby adjourned at 1:33 p.m.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.